Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Welcome to It's Time for More Injury Funding, the podcast for all who want to learn about legal funding and its significance in personal injury, mass torts, rideshare, medical malpractice, workers' compensation, trucking law, and many other types of law practice domains. I'm your host, Laura, founder and CEO of More Injury Funding, the legal funding counselors with passion for law, medicine, legal funding, and heart for all suffering individuals. In today's episode, I have a pleasure again to be talking to personal injury and mass torts attorney Darren Miller with D. Miller and Associates PLLC based in Houston, Texas. Today, we'll be discussing the power of diversification in your law practice. At the end of our episode, I prepared a fun pop-up question for our guests, so stay tuned. Without further ado, let me reintroduce you to Darren Miller.
Laura, it is great to see you again.
It's always pleasure. Love talking, love working with you. Let's start our discussion about the diversification of one's law practice. What does this mean, and why do you believe business diversification is crucial for success in a law practice?
Well, it's crucial. I think diversification within any business is smart, specifically as related to the practice of law. Because I've seen, for example, here in Texas, there were certain lawyers that were focused primarily on medical malpractice. And then one September, the legislature just changed the law. They gutted it so that it was just not practical to continue practicing in that format any longer and make a bunch of money. And so people that had been making millions of dollars and been doing it for 20 and 30 years, overnight, they lost everything and their practices were decimated. And so that's why I just think it's so important that, yes, you focus and get really good at something, but you always have to have a backup plan. And diversification and trying different things allows you that diversification so you can move in other directions if necessary.
Absolutely. How can you explain how diversification can help lawyers understand what their competition is doing?
Look, the practice of law is just has changed so much over the last 5 or 10 years. You used to be, you'd have your competition was mainly your the law firm down the street and making sure you knew what they were doing and trying to stay ahead of them and everything else. Well, it's completely changed with the advent of like companies like Morgan and Morgan spending money coming into all these different jurisdictions. If you're not abreast as to what's going on, if you're not aware of the changing circumstances throughout not just the local market, but statewide and nationwide, it puts you at a supreme disadvantage. Diversification, the problem that I see with a lot of lawyers, when you're only focused and looking in one direction, you can't see what's happening to your left and to your right. And when you're diversified and at least taking a glance in other directions, you can prepare yourself and address different changes in the marketplace before things catch you by surprise.
Well, that totally makes sense. What are some practical steps lawyers can take to identify and take advantage of other market opportunities?
Well, you have to be open to change, right? I know that many lawyers, when they start to get into their routines and they start to make a bunch of money, which is fantastic. Hey, I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to do this, and this is great. But if you only do one thing, you only expose yourself to one particular train of thought, you are potentially missing other opportunities. You're potentially missing things that you're not paying attention to, whether it is acquiring more cases at a lower cost, whether it is other opportunities that you could make certain changes in your system and take advantage of. You have to be ready and open towards change. And those lawyers that are incapable of making those changes and modifications, what they don't understand is they're slowly dying and they don't even realize it.
The world changes every single day, and we have to be able to adapt. So true. Let's talk now about adapting to change. In what ways does diversification prepare lawyers for changes in the market and legal landscape, Darren?
Well, one of the biggest things that I like about change and diversification is that it allows you to take advantage of other opportunities. For the longest time in personal injury, I've been doing very, very well. And I just got so as I read information and got information with regards to, for example, mass torts, for example, I saw all these big cases that people were getting involved in. And the one thing that was in common with all those things is that I had none of those cases. So I didn't get the chance to take advantage of any of those. So at some point I decided, you know what? I've got to look at things differently. I've got to take a chance. I've got to do things differently if I'm going to take a chance to try and reach some kind of a different outcome. It's a scary situation because you don't know exactly what's going on. You don't know that particular market. But unless you are willing to take certain risks, you can never take advantage of certain opportunities either. So one kind of goes with another, and you've got to be able to embrace those things or just be satisfied with what you've got.
Hmm. Could you maybe share some examples of how diversification has helped you or maybe others navigate shifts in competition or the law?
Absolutely. So I decided many years ago to get involved and take a risk with regards to mass tort cases. And so I got involved in doing some BP cases, and it took a very long time, and it was a scary proposition, and we didn't know how some of the rulings were going to work out, and it turned out in my favor. So that was kind of my first risk into the mass tort market. The biggest risk that I took was getting involved about 8 years ago in some sexual assault cases. And there was a big school out in California. I won't name the school for confidentiality reasons, but the one of the doctors out there was the gynecologist was molesting ladies, and it was awful. It was going on for many years, and we got contacted by someone that was out there doing that particular attending that school, and we took on that case. As we got more information, we found out this was a very big pervasive problem, and we were able to get involved in this case. We were able to change the law out in California. We were able to get quite frankly, $100 million result for the group of clients that we assessed, and we would never have been able to provide those clients closure to show that this was a real problem on the collegiate level, and to get the kind of justice that the clients deserved if we weren't willing to get out of our lanes and do something different and create a better result for our clients.
Thank you so much for sharing the story, Darren. Up next, we will focus on venture capital and its impact on legal industry. Many lawyers have a fear of being controlled and losing their autonomy, along with fear of financial obligations, market saturation, and a few other factors. What role does venture capital play in the legal industry today, and how can lawyers benefit from it versus being fearful of it?
Venture capital in the space is here to stay. What because of the change in the rules and the laws, allowing venture capital to get involved in the legal space, and them seeing so much opportunity here, you're going to see more and more companies and money getting involved. So, at a minimum, people need to get educated with regards to what that needs to look like and whether or not they should get involved in it. How it's helped with me, for example, when I talked about that particular mass tort case, mass torts is very expensive. You've got to do a lot of discovery. You've got to take on a lot of expense. You need additional people, and that funding I just didn't have. And so, because I was able to take on the venture partners, and we were able to kind of assess the risk and take a look at it and see, what the potential returns were based upon the defendants and the totality of the circumstances. It allowed me to finance that project while I still kept the lights on with regards to my personal injury business and get to the right outcome. Now, again, you've got to be careful with venture capital because it's expensive and you can't use it the wrong way. But if you spend it wisely and you've got good advice around you, you can do extremely well for yourself and for your partners.
So, Darren, are there specific areas within law that you believe are ripe for venture capital investment? I know you mentioned mass torts. Anything else?
Yes, mass torts, without any doubt, for sure, is a fantastic area because it's so costly and so expensive to acquire those cases. But what we've also seen is we identified a couple of different areas on the personal injury side where the margins were particularly attractive. And once we kind of modeled out the numbers in terms of, okay, if we spend this additional money to acquire these types of cases, we can monetize it in this fashion. So personal injuries can also be attractive. Again, the most important thing, Laura, is you just have to be very careful, understand your numbers, and stay within budget as much as you possibly can.
Absolutely. Let's take a moment to discuss building alliances. How can creating new alliances through business diversification enhance a law practice? You have quite a bit of experience with it.
Yes, again, Laura, I like to look at things somewhat differently, right? I know many lawyers like to do things from a very traditional standpoint. And so one of the things that I try to do is, okay, how am I thinking differently than maybe other lawyers, right? And how can I get them on board to do different things? And so I create different opportunities, whether it's on the personal injury side or on the mass tort side, or bringing in different partners to say, okay, look, here is something. Here's what the numbers look like, and here's what I think the returns look like. Now, many times when I put these types of deals together, then I'll charge a small portion of those fees because it's something outside of the box. It's something that attorney wasn't thinking about doing, or was that direction that they hadn't contemplated. And so, if I create opportunities for people, I think that you should be compensated for that. And so, it's another way of kind of doing business and just thinking differently about making money and generating opportunities within the legal space.
I love your thinking outside the box. That's very unique to you for sure. What strategies, Darren, can lawyers employ to retain clients while diversifying into other areas of law?
That's a great question. So, for example, one prime example of that is in the personal injury space. Let's just say you've been practicing personal injury for the last 15 years. You've got these repeat clients that they get into an accident here or there, and then they're going to call you back, and they're going to run them through the system. That's all well and good, but what most people don't take advantage of is that they have attorneys have these huge databases of clients that they've amassed over the years. So let's just say there's this hernia mesh case that's out there. There's a Camp Lejeune case, for example. Lawyers should be advertising these situations and these circumstances to their client base. Hey guys, I'm representing you for this personal injury case, but if you've got someone who has a hernia mesh issue, a family member, a friend, or whatnot, have them give me a call. And you can scrub your past clients, your leads, the people that you've known to get other cases in other areas. And while you don't even have to handle those cases, you set up relationships with other people to sign those cases, and then you get a piece of it. If you think smartly about your business and you're always marketing back and thinking about what are the other opportunities that are out there and figuring out how you can try and take advantage of it, you can sign up many different cases. We probably sign up thousands of cases in that fashion just by the lifestyle marketing we do to our regular client base, and we let them know about other things. And then you're creating other types of passive income just by letting people know what's going on out there.
That's such a great tip. Thank you so much. Up next, we will focus on exploring new areas of law. What are some of the most interesting benefits you've experienced from diversifying in new areas of law?
I think that probably the most important thing that I get out of it is I've been practicing law now for 25 years, and it is never boring to me because I'm always thinking of different opportunities and different cases and that sounds interesting. Is that something that I could benefit from? Is that something I can make a difference in? And so it allows you to think differently and capture different opportunities, different relationships with different people by just thinking outside of the box, by amassing those different relationships by, hey, if you see something interesting out there, let me know about it. Maybe I can put a group together to make something even bigger. One of the things that I've done lately is I market to my partners that I've done business with and market with and worked with in the past. And what I tell them is, hey guys, when you have this really unique opportunity, let me know about it. If it's really that good, then we can get a bunch of other people to get involved in it. One perfect example that I'll give you outside of the box is data breach cases. These cases are very interesting, and they involve statutory violations. And if some of these companies are doing it, you can get paid like a cash register. I've got a law firm out there on the West Coast that had about 2,500 cases, and they were doing it. And they're like, "Hey, D, can you help us with this? Can you get us some more people to get involved?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And so we got about 5 or 6 other law firms, and we turned that docket from about 2,500 cases to over 20,000 cases.
Wow.
And so, again, it just makes a big difference with regards to the things you can do if you've got a good case. It's all about putting resources and people together, Laura, and again, thinking outside of the box.
I love it. Can you discuss your transition from personal injury law to sexual assault cases? What challenges did you face?
The biggest challenge we face with going from personal injury to sexual abuse is that, look, that was our first challenge. I've never done a sexual abuse case before. This and 8 years ago, it was this university was one of the most storied universities in the country. They've got billions of dollars in resources. We're here in Texas. They're in California. So they've got history, they've got money, they've got experience on their side because they hired some of the biggest lawyers out in California to defend them. So that was a huge, huge task. And so, we, quite frankly, we didn't know exactly what we were doing, but we knew that the clients that we had at the time, they were wronged. We knew that they needed justice. And what was really interesting, Laura, was that the university at the time was saying, "Oh, we're so sorry that this has happened. We'll take care of it. We'll address it." But then when they talk to us, it's like, "Well, this happened so long ago, so we're not going to honor only those cases that you have that are within the statute of limitations. Those are the only ones we're going to honor." So then we had the challenge of, look, this is wrong. We had to go to the California legislature to say, "Look, here's what's happened under you guys' watch. Change the law so that these people have the chance to get justice." And so we were able to get them to amend that law so that these survivors, and that's the other thing I learned, uh, do not call these young women involved in sex abuse, do not call them victims. They're survivors. And so it was so rewarding to have them get their day in court, have them be vindicated, to address that type of a situation, and then being for them to kind of hold their heads high, because some of them, Laura, were just so embarrassed they didn't even tell their spouses what had happened, because some of them were like, "Oh, it happened so long ago, just let it go." Sexual abuse does not work like that. When you are assaulted in that fashion, you've got to work through it. And so being able to get them seven-figure resolutions, getting them counseling, getting them assistance, and then getting them vindication that this was a real thing, that was so rewarding to me. Personal injury, hey, that's great. Let me get them their money for their injuries. But it was just so much more fulfilling on the sexual abuse side when we were able to turn a really bad situation into something fairly good at the end and get a better outcome for those students moving forward.
And for all of you who want to go back to our first episode with Darren Miller is about the sexual assault. Well, I'll reference that in the comments. But can you mention your book, Darren, very quickly that you wrote
Yes.
recently?
Yes, my book, Changing the Game. We wrote the book, Changing the Game. The purpose of that book was just to provide insight and guidance to lawyers, whereas, look, you can do this. I referenced all the mistakes that I made in the past and how we turn those circumstances into victories, and just letting them know about all the things that you kind of have to go through, and that, look, if I can do this, starting with nothing and create a fairly sizable business out of it, you can also get over that hump and make it happen in your life.
Wonderful. Now let's turn our attention to overcoming barriers to business development. Why do you think many lawyers struggle to focus on their business side of their practice, Darren?
Look, Laura, I think it's very simple. When we go to law school, we are prepared to tell you about the elements of a certain offense, to tell you about the mechanics of the practice of law. So being very smart and knowing the law has nothing to do with business. And unfortunately, you don't learn those things in school. You learn it by getting out here and making different mistakes. And over the last 25 years, Laura, I can admit to you, I've made so many different mistakes, but I'm learning from these mistakes. And so, one of the things I would certainly recommend to anyone that's kind of getting started, take some business classes. Like for me, I went and got my MBA. That helped me immensely because I knew I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to practice law. I wanted to create business in different entities. And so I needed to have a foundation in business. And getting that law degree does not help you with any of those things.
100%. And it's never too late to go back to school, whether you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, even at the late age, go back to school if you've been thinking about it.
That's the thing, Laura. We're always learning. I am learning all of the time. I've got three kids in college right now. My oldest son is about to go to law school. And so I tell them, I'm old and I'm still learning. So that process of learning never stops. Keep that mind going, keep it fresh, keep it going. That's how we stay young and stay alive.
100%. How can lawyers break free from the routine of their daily work to prioritize business development?
Look, you have to put in the work. You have to look, I get it from 9 to 5, from Monday to Friday, you've got to pay those bills, work those cases. And I understand that. But you've got to put in extra time with regards to generating ideas and then thinking about what is lacking in my business. And one of the things that I tell most people to do, look, take times on the weekend, go for a walk, think through the process, right? You don't have to make it this laborious chore okay, at midnight, let me do this, that, and the other. Do it as a part of your natural routine and think about what changes you need to implement and plan and prepare. Do those things even on the weekend. I spend about 2 hours every weekend. Okay, what's next? What did I not think about? What happened last week? What do I need to address for this week? And prepare and plan for those things. Lawyers don't do that. They want to just work, 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 which again, I get is great. But if you don't plan and prepare, you cannot execute a successful plan if you're not thinking about all these other factors.
So true. I know you are a walking encyclopedia, Darren, of practical proven advices for fellow lawyers. What is one key piece of advice you would give to lawyers looking to diversify their practice?
Keep an open mind. All right. Keep an open mind. And look, go to somebody that you trust and ask them, hey, how do I do this? How do I approach diversification? Contact me. Look, I will give you ideas, suggestions with regards to some of the things that I did, some of the things that are out there. There are many different ways to success and finding that path, but you've got to put yourself out there in a position to succeed, in a position to receive. Be around people that think that same way. Because again, many times we surround ourselves with other people that are in our same or similar circumstances. And if everyone's all thinking the same way and doing the same things, what do you expect? You've got to think outside of the box and do things different if you want to try and get a different result.
Absolutely. How important is for lawyers to have a strategic plan, and what steps can they take to develop one if they don't have one?
Strategic planning is just so important. If you do not have a plan, you are planning to fail. And I know that sounds very cliche, but you've got to know where you're going and the way in which you're going to achieve certain things. And it's so important. If you don't have that as a part of your organization, there's people out there that will assist you with that. Even for myself, there was a company called Vista that I used to help me make sure, hey, take a look at this. How does my plan look? How can I make it better? Get advice from other people, even if you have to pay for it. Look, it gives you at least kind of a blueprint with regards to what other people are thinking is successful, and you can get other ideas and then go from there.
Mhm. Darren, you believe that planning is crucial. Can you elaborate on the pickleball analogy and how it relates to strategic planning in law?
So, it's funny you say that, Laura. I used to play a lot of racquetball, and then I kept getting hurt because I just want to keep going, 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 and I just couldn't keep doing that. So I made the transition to pickleball during the months of or the time of COVID,
Mhm.
and I'm like, it was tough for me to make that transition, especially when I saw all these old people, and this is not for me. I feel myself being young, even though my kids think I'm old. And so I didn't understand when I first started playing pickleball how, all the strategy that was involved, all the planning and preparing, all the practice that you needed, right? And I was terrible at it. And I'm like, well, damn it, why am I so bad at this game? Until someone pulled me aside, it's like, hey, you have to practice. You have to practice. You have to practice these shots, and you have to strategically put the ball in different areas, and you have to think and prepare. You can't just go out on the court and play. And it's much like your practice of law. If you do not plan and prepare, you're going to go out there and get your butt kicked because you're going to keep doing the same thing, thinking, gosh, why isn't this working for me? Well, it's not working for you because you're not taking a step back to see, okay, what do I need to do differently? What opportunities am I not taking advantage of? And so once I did that in pickleball, started practicing and starting to get better, then I started to gain confidence. Then I started to play better people. Then I started getting involved in tournaments. And it's much like the practice of law. As I started to have some success with the mass torts, then I started to get involved in the sexual abuse cases. And then I was able to get involved in real estate deals and all kinds of other different types of businesses because I planned, I prepared, and I executed the same way I try and do on the pickleball court.
Everybody listen up to Darren, okay? As you reflect on your journey, what is your vision for the future of law practice in terms of the diversification?
Look, it's about being ready. It's about being ready and being ready specifically for change. Because one thing that we know in the practice of law, it is going to change. It's going to be modified. We see what's going on out there in the political arena and how all these different changes our country is going through. That is a microcosm of what's going on in the practice of law. And so the benefit to being diversified, it gives you the ability to look at different directions, go in other areas. So when you get blindsided by something over here, no worries. I've got an option this way. And you've got to be able to think that way. Your head has got to be on a swivel with the practice of law with regards to developing successful business so you can see different opportunities and, more importantly, see the pitfalls that are out there and be prepared to deal with them because guess what? They are coming.
Mm-hmm. Have you been noticing any emerging trends, and do you foresee they could impact the way lawyers approach business diversification?
Yeah, I mean, I see different law firms, for example, coming in and trying to take over different markets. I see the advent of potentially, the state legislatures coming in and cutting fees. I see just many different changes that are like, oh my God, goodness, am I ready for that? Am I prepared? And so, you have to be prepared for those things. And okay, if this does happen, here's what I'm going to do. And while I'm not going to enjoy those particular changes, I know I'm going to be ready to weather that storm because okay, if this happens, I can do this and I can do this. Because when I'm out there walking and thinking, I'm contemplating these changes and these different things. And so I can at least be thinking about it. So I'm not caught flat footed if I've got to make a quick change the next day.
Mm-hmm. Such a great tip. I love it. This again was so great. I hope our discussion about the power of diversification and one's law practice was informative and educational. And as promised, here's a fun pop question for you, Darren. You ready?
Ready.
Is there a hobby or passion project you have outside of your work schedule that you wish more people knew about?
Okay. Yes. So I guess outside of my work, about 2 years ago, several years ago, I noticed the advent of venture capital funds. And so I'm like, I've got to learn about this. I've got to get educated. We had a couple of big cases, some things happened. And then I was approached by a group. Hey, Darren, let's get involved in a bank. Not just get involved. Let's start up a brand new bank. And so about 2.5 years ago, we started a bank here in Texas, Texas Traditions Bank. And I'm just telling you, Laura, it's been absolutely amazing. God has really blessed us. I'm involved with a group of people that know so much about financing and banking and taking care of clients. and the bank has absolutely blown up. It's mushroomed. It's doing extremely well. And and while I'm learning the bank business, I'm also seeing how that is impacting the practice of law. And so I'm just being able to kind of go backwards and forwards between both worlds because again, I'm just noticing these changes and these different movements, and I'm just trying to prepare myself for any other changes that come. So that would be one of my passion projects that, again, I would invite other people, just be aware of market conditions and start to kind of dip your toes into the water so that you can take advantage of things as things start to happen.
I'm so happy and so excited for you, Darren, as always. Uh,
Thank you. Always a
if
pleasure to be with you.
And if anybody is looking for you for your experience to share some ideas with you, or God forbid is injured in a car accident, or have if somebody wants to discuss a master situation with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, you can, of course, on the website, you can contact at dmillerlaw.com. My cell phone number, please call me at 832-309-3686. And Darren Miller at dmillerlaw.com is my email address. So I love to talk. I love to discuss because one of the things when I'm talking with people about stuff, I learn so much and it gets me to think about different things. So I invite you, please reach out. Let's see how we can help each other, support each other, and kind of go from there with regards to moving forward.
I love it. That was attorney Darren A. Miller with D. Miller and Associates PLLC in Houston, Texas. I want to thank you all for listening and watching our story today. For more tips and tricks on legal funding and personal injury law and medicine related topics, follow me, download, like, and subscribe. For It's Time for More Injury Funding podcast on several podcast platforms worldwide. And follow More Injury Funding on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, and Google business profile and my website at moreinjuryfunding.com. I can't wait to see you, my dear listeners and viewers, at my next upcoming episode. Tune in for our next guest soon. Until then, be well. Thank you.
Bye, Laura.